Hello, my name is Joe Asensio.
And I'm Steve Horninger.
We're your instructional technology team here at the Edwards campus.
Whether you're using lecture capture recording solution or connecting with a distance student, some things to keep in mind. The camera is found at the back of the classroom. We'll talk more about how to control the pan, tilt, and zoom of the camera at the lectern in a moment, but there's also ceiling mounted microphones found in the best building classrooms. I point that out so that you're aware that best audio pickup is generally found directly underneath. Although while you may have the ability to wander some throughout class, while you're in between, good audio is generally found. I point this out for a few reasons. One, if you're utilizing echo recording solutions, classroom scheduled captures are generally designed to begin 5 minutes prior to class, extending through 5 minutes following the end of class. That being said, any private conversations held with you or another instructor or your students may want to be held outside of the classroom. Also, as a housekeeping item, you may want to point out to students that private conversations that they're having inside of the classroom may well be picked up and then later heard by other students when reviewing the recordings. Also, we encourage you that whether you're using the lecture recording solution or if you're engaging with a different distance student, we encourage you to periodically look at the camera, talk to the distant student, especially if you're engaging through a software video conferencing solution, whether it be Zoom or Blackboard Collaborate or GoToMeeting. We encourage you to look at the camera and ask and engage questions of the distant student. Include them in the classroom discussions. Don't just assume that they're listening and participating silently. We also encourage you to check the desktop solution and making sure that the students are engaged. Might even be a great time to engage a classroom buddy that can look at those solutions inside of the classroom and ask them to participate and alert you to any things that may be going on in the software-based system, such as disconnections or questions that have been posed via chat. Let's move on to the lectern and let's look at how we do some other things there. At the lectern, probably the most critical thing to be alert to is first and foremost the camera. So notice that at the lectern control panel that you do have a small preview of what the camera is capturing. In order to make adjustments to that, you select the camera control button. From there you can pan, tilt, and zoom, and it's pretty straightforward here to move left or right, pressing left or right, up and down, and then zoom in and out. Note that there is also the capability to set a preset. It is actually a long hold. So if you select the input that you would like to preset, you press and hold for a long 10 seconds, and eventually you will get an indication saying preset saved in a little blue box. Notice the preset saved indication. So if I were to then change my input to something else, notice the camera changes and I go back to where we just set to number 6. We come back right to where we were. If that preview is too small, you also can touch this preview and get a full screen preview here. So notice that we get the full camera view and can see what we're working with here. Again, you can select presets over on the right-hand side as well as power. Pan, tilt, and zoom has moved over to the left-hand side, so you can still do the same features in this large view. Touch it again to return back to the lectern controls. I would point out that the black screen is here. You select black screen. If you notice in our camera here that the projection screen has gone black. However, I would point out that if you are using Echo Lecture Capture or some software video conferencing solution, that anytime you're still recording the screen or anything, if you're displaying screen through your software video conferencing solution, students will still be able to see whatever you're sharing in the room PC or laptop if you're connected and sharing at that point. The lecture capture recording solution always records digital input in addition to camera in a totally separate screen. So even if you have black screened in the classroom, the students are still going to be able to see what you've done in the recording. So I caution you to be careful with what you're doing in that regard, whether it being during prior to or following class or in the middle of a break. Beyond that then, I would point out a few things along the bottom here. Again, we've touched on this previously, but the microphone controls, you can mute or enable the microphones if you're doing some student-based activities where they're having conversations, for example, with remote students, and they're going to have a private conversation, and you don't want them to hear what's going on in this local classroom. You can mute this local classroom microphone systems, and that refers to all of the ceiling-mounted microphones. At the same point, if students are having a conversation remotely and you don't want to hear what they're doing, you can mute the speakers in the classroom. Beyond that, you can adjust the speaker volume by adjusting up or down to your so desire. I think that's the basics of utilizing the touch panel for the recording solutions. Thank you for joining us for this session. Please feel free to reach out to us for any classroom technology, KU-supported software, or Blackboard LMS related questions. Thanks so much.